My name is Chris, and I'm about to tell you the most disturbing night of my married life. What I heard coming from the guest room where my mother-in-law was staying still haunts me. But before you jump to conclusions, let me tell you what really happened. My wife Jessica and I had been married for years. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood in a 3-bedroom house. The third bedroom was our guest room, and it didn't get much use until Jessica's mother, Patricia, came to stay with us. Patricia was 62 years old, recently widowed after Jessica's father passed away from a heart attack 6 months earlier. She'd been struggling with grief and loneliness, so when she asked if she could stay with us for a few weeks while she figured out her next steps, we immediately said yes. Patricia had always been a strong, independent woman. She'd raised 3 kids mostly on her own while her husband traveled for work. She was practical, no nonsense, and rarely showed vulnerability. Seeing her broken and grieving was difficult for all of us, especially Jessica. The first week went smoothly. Patricia kept to herself mostly, spending time in the guest room or taking long walks around the neighborhood. She was polite at dinner, helped with dishes, but you could see the sadness in her eyes. Jessica tried to engage her in activities, movie nights, cooking together, going shopping, but Patricia seemed to be going through the motions. Then came that Tuesday night. It was around a.m. when I woke up. I'm usually a deep sleeper, but something had pulled me from sleep. At first, I couldn't figure out what it was. Jessica was sleeping peacefully beside me, and the house was dark and quiet. Then I heard it. A low, mournful sound coming from down the hall, from the guest room where Patricia was staying. Moaning. My blood ran cold. It was unmistakably the sound of someone in distress, deep, guttural moans that seemed to come from somewhere primal. My first thought was that Patricia was having a medical emergency. A heart attack, a stroke. Something serious. I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. Should I wake Jessica? Should I go check on Patricia myself? The moaning continued, and with each sound, my panic increased. I got out of bed as quietly as I could, not wanting to wake Jessica until I knew what was happening. I crept down the hallway toward the guest room, my hands shaking. The moaning was getting louder as I approached. It was rhythmic, repetitive, and absolutely terrifying in the darkness of the night. I stood outside the guest room door, frozen. What was I supposed to do? Burst in? Knock? What if she was having a medical emergency and every second counted? But what if she was just... I couldn't even finish the thought. This was my mother-in-law. There were some possibilities my brain refused to entertain. The moaning continued. It sounded painful, desperate. I had to do something. I knocked softly on the door. Patricia? Are you okay? The moaning stopped abruptly. There was silence for a long moment. Then I heard movement inside the room. Chris? Patricia's voice came through the door, sounding strained and embarrassed. Is that you? Yes, I heard. I heard sounds. Are you all right? Do you need help? Another long pause. I'm fine. Please just go back to bed. But she didn't sound fine. Her voice was thick, like she'd been crying or in pain. I couldn't just walk away. Patricia, I'm worried. Can you open the door? Or should I get Jessica? No, don't wake Jessica, please. There was desperation in her voice now. I'm embarrassed. But I'm not dying or anything. I promise. Then what's wrong? Those sounds. You were moaning. It sounded like you were in pain. I heard footsteps approaching the door, and then it opened just a crack. Patricia's face appeared, illuminated by the dim nightlight in the hallway. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying, and she looked absolutely mortified. I wasn't in physical pain, she said quietly. I was crying, grieving. Sometimes it comes out as these awful sounds that I can't control. I didn't think anyone could hear me. I felt like an idiot. Of course, she was grieving her husband. The moaning wasn't anything sinister or medical. It was the raw, unfiltered sound of someone processing profound loss. I'm so sorry, I said. I didn't mean to intrude. I just heard the sounds and thought maybe you were sick or hurt. I know. And I appreciate that you were concerned. She wiped her eyes. But please don't tell Jessica about this. She worries so much already, and I don't want her to see me like this. I try to hold it together during the day, but at night it's harder. Patricia, Jessica would want to know. She'd want to help you. There's nothing she can do, Chris. Nothing anyone can do. I just have to get through this. And I'm trying. But some nights, the grief it overwhelms me. And these sounds come out. It's humiliating. We stood there in the hallway, and for the first time since I'd known her, Patricia looked truly vulnerable. Not just sad, but broken in a way that made my chest hurt. Would it help to talk? I offered. I know I'm not. I mean, I didn't know your husband as well as Jessica did, but I'm here if you need someone to listen. Patricia considered this for a moment, then nodded slowly. Maybe for just a few minutes. I don't think I can go back to sleep anyway. We went downstairs to the kitchen, both of us moving quietly so as not to wake Jessica. I made tea while Patricia sat at the kitchen table, wrapped in her bathrobe, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. The nights are the worst, she began once we were seated. During the day, I can distract myself. I can pretend I'm okay. But at night, when it's dark and quiet, I can't escape it. He's gone. Really, truly gone. And sometimes the realization hits me so hard that I can't breathe. These sounds just come out. How long has this been happening? Since he died. But it's gotten worse since I came here. I think being in a different environment, away from our home, has made it more real somehow. In our house, I could pretend he was just in another room, or at work, or running errands. But here, there's no pretending. He's just absent. I listened as Patricia talked about her husband, their 40 years together, the good times and the hard times, the things she missed about him, the things she wished she'd said. She talked about the guilt she felt for being alive when he wasn't, the fear of facing the rest of her life alone, the anger at him for leaving her, and these sounds I make at night. She continued, they're so ugly, so animalistic. I'm ashamed of them. I'm ashamed that I can't grieve quietly and with dignity. Instead, I sound like a wounded animal. Grief isn't dignified, Patricia. There's no right way to do it. Maybe not. But I don't want Jessica to hear those sounds. I don't want her to know how badly I'm struggling. She has her own life, her own problems. She doesn't need her mother falling apart. She'd want to know. She loves you. I know she does. But sometimes love means protecting people from seeing you at your worst. We talked for over an hour. Patricia shared stories about her husband that I'd never heard, cried several times, and even laughed a few times when remembering funny moments. By the time we went back to bed, she seemed calmer, more at peace, but the next night, I heard the moaning again. And the night after that, it became a pattern. Patricia would hold it together during the day, but at night, the grief would overwhelm her and these terrible, heartbreaking sounds would come from the guest room. And each night, I would lie awake, listening, torn between respecting her privacy and wanting to help. On the fourth night, Jessica woke up too. What is that sound? She whispered, sitting up in bed. My heart sank. I'd been trying to protect Patricia's secret, but I couldn't lie to my wife. It's your mom. She's been having a hard time at night, grieving. Jessica was out of bed immediately, heading toward the guest room. I followed, trying to explain, but she was already knocking on her mother's door. Mom? Mom! It's me. Let me in. The moaning stopped. After a long moment, Patricia opened the door. When she saw Jessica standing there, her face crumpled. You heard? Patricia said, her voice breaking. I heard. Mom, why didn't you tell me you were struggling this much? I didn't want to burden me. Mom, you're my mother. You've taken care of me my entire life. Let me take care of you now. What followed was something I'll never forget. Jessica and Patricia sat on the guest room bed, and Patricia finally let herself fall apart completely. Not just a moaning, but full sobbing, the kind that shakes your whole body. And Jessica held her mother and cried with her. I stood in the doorway, feeling like I should leave but somehow knowing I needed to witness this. This was what real love looked like, messy, painful, vulnerable, and beautiful all at once. After that night, things changed. Patricia stopped trying to hide her grief during the day. She cried at the dinner table sometimes. She had good days and bad days, and she let us see both. And slowly, over the next few weeks, The nighttime moaning became less frequent. Jessica started sleeping in the guest room with her mother some nights, just to be there if Patricia needed her. They would talk late into the night, sharing memories of Jessica's father, crying together, laughing together. "Thank you for not telling me right away," Jessica said to me one morning. "I know Mom asked you not to, and you respected that. But I'm also glad you were there for her those first nights. I just made tea and listened. That's more than you think." She told me about your conversations. She said you made her feel less alone. 3 weeks later, Patricia announced she was ready to go back to her own home. She seemed stronger, more like herself, but also changed in some fundamental way. More open, more willing to show vulnerability. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said as we loaded her car. "And thank you for putting up with those sounds. I know they must have been disturbing. They were just the sound of someone who loved deeply and lost profoundly," I said. "There's no shame in that." She hugged me then tightly. "You're a good man, Chris. I'm glad Jessica found you." Years later, Patricia would occasionally reference that time I stayed with you and kept everyone up with my widow's moaning. She'd learned to talk about it with a touch of humor, though we all knew how dark that period had been. But more importantly, that experience changed our relationship. Patricia stopped trying to be the strong, unflappable mother-in-law and became more human, more real. And our family became closer because of it. I did hear my mother-in-law moaning in the guest room, but it wasn't anything scandalous or inappropriate. It was the raw, unfiltered sound of grief, one of the most human experiences there is. And sometimes being there for someone means just listening, making tea, and letting them know they're not alone in their pain.